one of the things that I wanted to say first is very kind of you to say that I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I'm not yet a serial entrepreneur. I just got one venture right, and I'm now at the beginning of doing my second venture. I think only once you get a venture right and you founded something can you call a founder. In my first venture, I took 7 years before I started signing off as founder because I always felt that nothing has really got created yet. So some more time before I hopefully earn that tag. Yeah, I'm briefly going to take you through my journey of, I'm one of those early entrepreneurs who started up back in 2008 when starting wasn't as fashionable as it is today. Today, there are so many entrepreneurs in the Indian startup ecosystem is so thriving. Back in 2008, there were really only a handful, and I got lucky that got funded very early, and I started off on a journey which I was very passionate about, and I went through the usual Series A, Series B, Series C. The company got scaled out to 500 people. We were managing loyalty programs for more than 1 billion consumer profiles in India, processing about 200 million transactions, awarding 2.5 billion loyalty points every month. So that really got scaled out. And eventually, company got acquired and I exited. It sort of ran the full 9 yards. I had great fun doing that. And I'm trying to, in the next window of time, trying to share with you a whole bunch of learnings and experiences that I've had. And I'll try to breeze through. A lot of these are common knowledge and people hear and talk about it, but I'm trying to share with you from my first-hand experience. And the first disclaimer to whatever I wanted to say is, there is no silver bullet. It's a very hard thing, and you have to really, really work hard. And there is no overnight success. There is no quick win. It's to start an organization and build it over a period of time into a sustainable business venture. The fact that I'm very proud of is that I exited, the company got acquired. The company continues to do very, very well. I'll always remain a founder, but I'm not a part of that organization now. But very proud of it going forward and to create something that will last the test of time. There is no overnight success. And I think given that there's a whole bunch of young entrepreneurs here and startup organizations, one of the things that I wanted to start is why startup? And from my perspective, you don't start an organization just because you want to become a founder. I think it all starts with a burning desire to solve a problem. And you need to identify that problem that consumes you. And if you find something like that's really when you go and start up and try to solve that problem. And often I've heard people saying, I don't want to work for someone, I don't like my boss, or my career is not going well, so can I go and start up? I don't think it works like that. I've been lucky always to have had great bosses during my corporate career before I went and started up. And I started up because I really wanted to do something, and I actually proposed to the organization where I worked that let's do this. I used to manage a travel loyalty program for an airline called Jet Airways. I used to head Jet Privilege. And I thought that there's a whole lot of stuff to be done in the financial services and retail industry, and the airline didn't want to do it. And I felt very strongly about wanting to do that, so I stepped out and did it myself. So you need to be very, very clear of why you want to do it. It's also equally important to know that startup is it's a very hard walk, and it's not for everyone. My favorite line is, it's really a walk that you do through broken glasses and melting coal. It's a very difficult walk, and it's very hard. From the external world, there's so much of glory and success and all of that to entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs' life is very, very hard, and that's something which you need to know before you go down that path. What does it take? Interesting, you can see there's a whole bunch of things, like business model, capital, co-founder, technology, team, market, regulatory environment, lots of luck. The interesting point that I want to highlight is that if you don't get even one of any of these things right, it's difficult to succeed. You need to get every one of them. You say you get everything right, and if the regulatory environment changes and your business model doesn't work anymore. You got everything right, but there are two co-founders and they fell out. The various ways in which an organization go down. So you need to get every one of them right, which is probably why 1% of the startups succeed to go on to become a large organization. And the next point that I want to share with you is, create something which is sustainable. I've often noticed people wanting to start up, honestly saying, hey, I want to start something and scale it into a little bit, and maybe in 2 years sell it to somebody, 15, 20 crores, life is good. And I personally think it doesn't really work. Look for Look for business models that will stand the test of time and it will last longer than yourself. And that's really the way to, it's not a quick get rich kind of a scheme. It's really something which you want to create and leave behind. And the organization started with that intention to solve a problem that will last the test of time. They are the ones which will go on to become larger and go on to impact. And yes, of course, capital is important. You need capital to scale any business. Simply put, if you don't have capital, what happens is you can create a profitable unit economics and it'll keep trickling in money, and if you keep reinvesting, your growth is slow. Capital fundamentally is only to grow fast. Capital is not to solve business models. Business model needs to be profitable by itself. And if it's making $100 and if you put $100 back into the business, it will grow slowly. But if there is a unit that you can make which makes $100, and if you can invest $1 million and make $1,100,000 at the same time, that's just how you scale. But you need to get your unit economics right. And yeah, one interesting thing that I often don't say, but I'll share here, given there's a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, is raising venture capital is a full-time job and it takes a lot of effort. And often enough, you meet VCs and first meeting, second meeting, entrepreneurs are very, very excited. I got my second meeting, third time VC called, and you're almost like, I'm about to get funded, but please be aware, every VC also has a timesheet to fill. So sometimes you might want to ask whether there's real intent to invest. The reason is, for an entrepreneur, the most important thing that you have with you is your time. So every meeting or every presentation that you take needs to be realistic and it can go somewhere. This is interesting, when I was setting up this presentation, I was chatting with the technology guys there. Somebody said, is that an error on top? It's not an error, it's Greek. And to a lot of entrepreneurs, actually, there's a whole lot of stuff written here is actually Greek. SHA, SPA, drag along, tag along, anti-dilution, liquidation preference, assignability, put option, call option, earnouts, warrants, fully diluted shareholding, CPs, conditions precedent, or conditions subsequent. If you start an organization and go through your series A, B, C, and build it into a large-scale organization, you will actually need to know every single bit of it in detail. What does this mean? What does anti-dilution mean? And how can that impact you, not today, but 3 years from now? If you rush through your early days and sign up and get investment, and if you don't actually get some of the clauses right, it will come back to bite you, and it will come back to bite you badly. One of the reasons why Indian entrepreneur ecosystem is still very young in many, many ways, right? And you see that by the time an organization scales up to become large, founders are sitting with 5% and 7% equity. And one of the reasons why this actually happens is because there isn't a lot of awareness about how it is done during the early days. Founders got really, so it's better to actually understand and go slow on the agreements and stuff that you will sign. But these terms, while it might look like Greek and Latin to you, are extremely important, and you might actually want to go and take some help from somebody before you sign the dotted lines. Getting funding is important, but getting funding and signing your organization away is also not so nice. This is another interesting slide, day in the life of an entrepreneur. It's a lot of highs and a lot of lows, hopefully more highs than lows for you. But there are, when I look at my 10-year journey, I can think of at least 3 or 4 near-death windows of time where I didn't know that my organization will survive the next month, or whether I don't know that I'll make payrolls in the end of the month. So there are going to be highs and lows, and one day you're feeling great, and next day feeling really crappy, and then next day you're again feeling great. That's really what an entrepreneur's life is, and so you need to be really resilient. You need to be able to adjust to different situations and go back to sleep end of the day, and tomorrow is another day, and go back and fight again. I think key skills are, besides many, many other skills that you need, an entrepreneur needs to also be a messiah and a community at the same time. It's on one hand you are the person who's inspiring the whole team. You are the person who's charging, passing on the energy, creating the vision, getting the whole organization to stand behind you. And that's the perfect angelic side of an entrepreneur who can inspire, but he also needs to make sure that when things go wrong, he can deal with it with an iron hand. And if you don't have the capability, if you're soft, that's not really going to work for you. You need to be strong and tough. And I think if anyone were to ask me one single most important thing that an entrepreneur needs to do, that is to take help. and nobody starts knowing everything. No entrepreneur in this country, whether you go all the way up to Flipkart or any big organizations, all of them started young and they didn't know a lot, and they shamelessly took help along the way. And that's a skill that a lot of people do not have, surprisingly. You don't know and you muff around, and you just need to go and take help shamelessly. That's what you really need to do. And lastly, exit strategy. This is, I see business plans very often these days, and one of the things that I find missing is when an entrepreneur thinks through about what he wants to do, he doesn't have a clear exit path. And when you go and meet an investor, the investor, while you are trying to be super passionate about your business model, and so investors also trying to be passionate about a business model, but he's thinking in his mind that if I put in $5 million, how am I going to get that back? That's what he's going to have to write in his investment thesis to his own firm before he makes that investment. And it is an entrepreneur's job, really, to tell that investor, how am I going to give you an exit? So I've had that wonderful opportunity of walking that path, and very proud of the fact that my investors exited very profitably. And that's something which I'm very proud of, because I always felt that it was my responsibility to give the money back that they gave me to play with and build an organization. And having had my investors exited, I had a window of time, and I started to think about what next. And that is when I again started to become, the next venture came along, and that's why I exited, because I really, really got passionate about doing something again, which, like I said, something which you believe in, not because I really didn't want to start another venture, or no, I could have taken a vacation or anything, but I really got passionate about what next, what did I want to do with my life next. And reluctant again, because I couldn't find any other way of solving it. And that is really, like I said, towards the end of my last venture, I started to think about, where's all my data, and organizing my life and digital assets. And one day I realized that, hey, where is all my digital online data going? And it sort of struck me that it's really a very bad problem. I don't know how people go to sleep once it hits you very hard, because, the internet as we know it, it's like a kingdom right now. When you go back in the physical world, there was a time that we used to call monarchy, where kings owned all the land and you lived in king's country, and nobody owned land. All land is owned by the king. And everybody's, they're called subjects, king and his subjects. There's a nice word that they used to call us now, which is comparable to, in the digital world, the word subjects is equivalent to what, They call us users. Have you ever wondered why they call us users? 3-4 billion internet users. And what do you have on the internet? Literally 3 companies. Go back and do the math today. Go back and do the math, do your estimations. Literally 3 companies own 99% of all content on the internet. Take our own lives, starting with Gmail to WhatsApp to Twitter to Facebook to LinkedIn to Instagram to everything that we do are on servers owned by very large organizations, their platform, their IP, their product, their service, and you go and take your data and keep there. And I somehow felt that that's not okay. And that's really why, and looked at, everybody's talking about privacy today, and a lot of solutions are coming about, GDPR, this, that, and the other. But my fundamental question is, if you don't have a place where you can keep your own stuff, if you go and keep your stuff in somebody else's place, they're going to see it. Then you're not going to get privacy. Whatever regulations government bring, government can tell large organizations not to take your data and give it to Cambridge Analytica, but at least those organizations will get your data because you're going and keeping it there. You don't have a place of your own. And that's why I felt that a structural, fundamental solution, a leap of faith sort of, is it's time for, that's why I'm trying to do something very innovative. It's time for people to own your space on the internet. It's an innovative concept. It's not easy to wrap your head around it, but you need to own your place on the internet, much like the way what happened in the physical world. There was a time when emperors and kings, and there was no concept of land ownership, and then came the concept of republic. With it came the concept of private land ownership, which didn't exist during Chandragupta Maurya's kingdom. People didn't own their own land. There was no land registration office. If you ask the guy, do you own this piece of land? It's as bad as asking somebody, do you own a piece of the internet today? The guy's not going to get it. What do you mean own a piece of the internet? But in the physical world, that transformation happened. And republic came along, and private ownership came along. And I think that it's time for people to start owning their own private place, much like the way you have your home in the digital, in the physical world, right? Which is only private. If you want to, pardon my language, but if I want to sit without my shirt on, there's only one place I can do that. It's only one private place in this world. It's your home. And you don't have a place like that on the internet. And it's time that something like that came along. And this is my last slide. I ran out of time. But in this context, one of the questions that I get from people who want to build a digital home, they ask, this is all fine, I build my digital home, but where's my server? If you say that legally this is my home, I don't have a server with me, and I take efforts to tell them, listen, you can go to your neighborhood computer shop and buy a server and take it home, and that's yours. But it's actually better to go to a cloud service provider, global established organization like DigitalOcean and sign up and take a server because it's much better managed. Temperature control, uninterrupted power supply, security. If you take a server home and the minute you connect it onto the internet, it'll be attacked by virus and all of that, and you don't have a firewall at home. It's actually better for you to have a server at the DigitalOcean and still feel that that is your server. That's a leap of faith which people don't know again. So, like I said, where I started, I'm reluctantly doing my second venture because I felt that this is a problem. I understand that I'm perhaps up against very large organizations, but that's fine. It's fun trying to create a new concept where people need to start owning their own place. And DigitalOcean, instead of having 10,000 B2B customers, hopefully we'll have 50 million B2C customers. That's the kind of transformation that we want to bring about in the digital world. Thank you so much.